Mm-hmm.
and then count us in. So 3, 2, 1. Well, welcome everybody to the first official week of the Formula G season. I'm Zotomo, and I'm joined by Calamity. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, race week 1 saw us in Australia. Very interesting location given how big it is, especially compared to Spain. We were in for the test week. Let's just jump right in and take a look at those locations that we had in this first week. First location, Calamity, north of Sydney.
Yeah, starts us off right near the coast, the east coast of Australia, and there wasn't like you were in sort of a small side road going off of a main highway, and on that highway you could relatively easily find signs towards a bunch of cities around there, and they also told you that you're on the A1, and well, the A1, considering its name, not that difficult to find in Australia. That was a pretty easy round. Let me just quickly look at it. I think everyone got that. Deep Thought and Manaslau lost like 20 points, and Shumiobal also did as well, but everyone else 5K'd that location. So a relatively easy one to start us off with.
Pretty straightforward. Not too hard to find a major road that even on a quite zoomed out level shows up. So even if you don't know where it is, you can easily spot it. Plenty of distance markers as well to help you pinpoint. So pretty nice. Round 2, we went across the country to southern Western Australia, which is the part of Australia I like the least.
Well, yeah, it's a bit more difficult, I think, because you're just not as familiar with the town names over there and everything.
I think that is true.
I did have to go for quite a while until I found some useful information that eventually placed me near Albany, which I did feel like I'd heard of before. And, well, considering I hadn't heard of anything else, I just started looking over there eventually. And Albany stands out on the map relatively far, zoomed out. So I guess like if you walked east, which I did, and found signs for Albany, it wasn't that hard. You could also go west and find signs for Denmark. But yeah, probably probably the hardest round to get the general area. Pinpointing itself wasn't too bad though.
I think I did the same thing. I found something for Albany, and given the very generous time, I was able to just kind of scan the southern part of Australia, and it does show up very easily on a relatively generous zoom level, so that saved me quite a bit. My pinpointing wasn't on target as always, but I was near the city at least, so yeah. Not week 3, location
Week
3. Week 3. We just jumped in time. No, round 3 in Queensland. Again, not too far from the coast.
Yeah, but I'd be surprised if you managed to find your way to the coast in the 5 minutes. But you're right, it's relatively close. I mean, most of the Australian coverage is relatively close to the coast because there's just nothing in the middle of the country. But yeah, I walked south and there were some signs towards major cities pretty close by. I assume, looking at the map right now, that it was the same to the north. The only problem was that I didn't recognize either of those, but the one further away, I think it was 190 kilometers or so towards Nebo, doesn't really show up at a high zoom level. And I eventually found Middlemount, but it was pretty hard to pinpoint because we were just in the middle of 2 side roads going off of the main highway here that were both roughly, I think, a kilometer to either side. And, well, for me at least, finding the general location took so long that I didn't have the time for anything like counting clicks or something like that. So I and a lot of other people missed the exact pinpoint here. I think only M the Basement got 5K on that location.
Yeah, congrats to him. Yeah, I think the same. 5 minutes is a pretty generous amount of time, as I've been saying. So you do have the time to kind of scan the map and find the information you have. but then often there's no extra time to actually pinpoint. So that's kind of the difference between maybe 3 minutes and 5 minutes is you can find the general area in 5 minutes, maybe you couldn't in 3, and then pinpointing is really the challenge in that 5-minute time span.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest difference, the likelihood of finding the general area between the amounts of time you have.
Indeed. Round 4, outside of Sydney, roughly.
Yeah, pretty much. Very, very much in sort of in the middle of a lot of different small towns around there. So finding any of those is going to be hard. I walked east first and eventually found my way to a sign that told me we're on the B84 towards Newcastle. Newcastle, a relatively big city just northeast of Sydney, which made that everything like a lot easier. Also something I didn't mention before, you can learn about the different number plates that Australia uses and help yourself that way to know that you're in New South Wales. I'll probably talk more about that when we do the video coverage of the runs we got, but that can also help you out and tell you that you're in New South Wales at least. And yeah, then it was just a matter of finding Jerry's Plains, which is an interesting name for a town, and then pinpointing, which was not that easy because we were on a relatively long, pretty straight stretch of road, but which started just west of a small curve, which meant that in the end there was, I think, around 8-9 people that did get 5k points there.
Very nice. Yeah, and then round 5 was the kicker for sure. Christmas Island. Thank you, Radox, for that.
Yeah. So. That being said, pretty easy to get once you do know that you're there because, well, not exactly the largest island. If you walked from the beginning, you could see a sign towards the blowholes, which I'm still not quite sure what that is, but I know I had it before and I knew it was in a weird place. I just didn't quite remember where. But I also think that if you continued that way, you might not have seen much information from what I read of the other people, or at least the ones that didn't get the location. Going west or like northwest, pretty soon you'd found a sign for Christmas Island, and then you just had to pinpoint, which that was quite important because there was actually a road there on the map that didn't exist in the coverage. So everyone who just hurriedly tried to, get the 25k as quickly as possible for those juicy bonus points, missed out there. The Baseman, 1 point lost there. He was so close. Because he was the only one at that point who still could have gotten the 25k. I think everyone else dropped some points in round 3. So if he had just taken his time and carefully looked at it, because he guessed after 2 minutes and 40 seconds roughly, so he had 2 more minutes to carefully look at it, and he didn't, so he loses 5 points there, and 5 points in the standings, not just in Geoguessr.
Yeah. I didn't see a sign for Christmas Island. I did see the blowhole signs. For those of you who don't know, blowholes are geological features that when waves crash up against the beach, it forces water through a narrow hole that causes it to actually shoot up into the sky or something like that. The thing is, they're not exactly unique. So they're all over the coast of Australia, and as well as I think there's some in Hawaii and maybe the west coast of the US. That's where I'm familiar with them, at least. And so I was like, oh, that doesn't help because they're not there's not one of them in the entire country. So I was like, well, I'm just going to pick somewhere really close to the coast because that's where they occur. And I was still on the mainland, so I was way off. But unfortunate there. Yeah, well, let's see. I've already mentioned that the Baseman did quite well. And as we look at the standings from that feature race, you will see that he did only lose that 1 point in the last round, with Tall Impala right on his heels, only losing 2. And Wakelock, a replacement driver, 3 points off of perfect score. And then Calamity, 5 points off in 4th. And then it quite falls off from there. But yeah, congrats, Calamity. Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Wakelock and Gamer RG16GG, with the asterisk next to their names, are filling in for Settle and Clutch Airball, I think, respectively, who DNS'd, who didn't show up. And so their reserve driver stepped in. And for Lancaster, that's quite an achievement. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yep.
Anything kind of stand out for you, Calamity?
Yeah, you can see there sort of, as you could already see in Spain, if you mess up on one of the locations, if you don't find the general area on one of them, you're pretty much not going to get any points. In this case, Shumi Oboloso just scraping by 1 point with his 23.5k. But other than that, you pretty much have to find everything to get any points there. You can still be a bit off in pinpointing here and there. But yeah, other than that, for the people itself, surprisingly mediocre, let me call it, results for a lot of the Reddit League competitors. Here you can see Slovak Goalie in 12th, Deep Thought in 16th, Max in 17th. Also Simi doing not too great here in 9th. Mr. Blue in 8th is probably also relatively disappointing for him. But then again, still some of them like M the Basement, Tall Impala, me relatively high up, Wakelock as well. And yeah, Closed, sort of pulling away here at the top. I think he did very well in week 1 as well, and in the sprint race too, which we're going to see in a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Deep Thought, Max FI, definitely lower down on the table than I would have thought, as well as Giovanni or Stimfalix.
Yeah, Giovanni, he didn't find Christmas Island. That's the main reason for his 20k points.
Yeah, I thought when I saw 20k, I was like, that's an odd number, which means you got perfect. Well, either that or just mathematically worked out brilliantly. But yeah, it sounded to me like he got 4 perfect rounds and then a 0.
It worked out quite nicely. He got 2 points in Christmas Island. I think he dropped 2 points in round 3 to make up for that, to get his 20k.
Yeah, to come out as a perfect 20k is quite special in and of itself. He should get a bonus point for that. But yeah, so let's take a look at the results for the sprint race. Given that all the locations are pretty closely tied and in Melbourne, not too much to worry about besides simply finding road names. We don't have locations for that. But yeah, you can see that the time differences really seem to help some people here in the sprint race, Calamity.
Yeah, the first thing that I noticed just now, Max FI winning the sprint race after coming, I think it was like 17th or something in the feature race. So that's, that certainly makes up for that poor result there. As I said before, Closed in 2nd place. Barry Fishy Bear just continuously picking up a few points here and there. He's been relatively consistent, I think. Then me in 4th. Pretty happy about that. Also, Giovanni here picking up a couple points, M the Basement a few more. Deep Thought as well after his 16th place. Doesn't matter. No points in the feature race, so he picks up a couple points here at least. Again, surprisingly weak showings from the likes of Simi or Mr. Blue. Slovak Goalie as well still hasn't picked up a single point yet. Competitor in Division 2 of Reddit League last season. Will be in Division 3 going forward for next season. And Steal This Nick as well. I think I mentioned him and Deep Thought as sort of my dark horse for the season, but they've not really pulled out that great of a performance so far.
Yeah, well, let's be fair. It's only week 1, so.
I mean, true, but it's been 3 races.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It has been 3 competitions. There have been quite a bit of points up for grabs already. As we'll get to the standings, you can see some players are already in double digits easily and pushing for triple already. So, yeah, I think the big surprise here was Tall Impala had a very good showing in the feature race, but didn't even bother to get on the track here in the sprint race. I don't know if that was just a miscommunication about what he needed to do, or
I know he did the feature race on Wednesdays on the last day. I think he might have just forgotten that there's a sprint race, but yeah, we'll see next week if he forgets next time as well.
A repeat feature, yeah. Good. Well, yeah, I'm very happy with my teammates' performances. Barry Fishberry doing quite well for us. So let's take a look at the driver standings after week 1. closed at the top, 50 points, 20 points clear of any competitor in Orpheus and Berryfish Bear, Calamity.
Yeah, 20 points isn't that much yet, considering there's going to be 2 races every week, and with a couple of bad performances, you can fall back pretty easily. But it's still quite a big advantage at the moment. A bit surprised about Orpheus and Berryfishy Bear. They're in 2nd and 3rd. They're not that well known, I'd say, in the community, but they've performed pretty well so far. Then we have like more well-known names from 4th to 9th. Generally, the table looks about as you would expect if you take out 1 or 2 drivers from either side of the table. Like maybe you wouldn't expect Orpheus or Berryfishy Bear at the top. Maybe you wouldn't expect Slovak Goalie that far down, Giovanni as well. But other than that, roughly how you'd think it'd go.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, there's I haven't actually done the math. How many points are up for grabs in one race? But these points are looking quite big, a difference between 50, 30, and then towards the lower end, about 10. But 1 week, 2 good performances, a driver could easily pick up 25, 30 points. And that's not even coming in the top 2 or 3, right? That can be 4th or 5th.
I finished, for example, I finished 4th twice this week, so I picked up 26 points.
Yeah, it's a good example indeed. So definitely those points are going to get very big over the course of the season. So don't worry about any of the small leads that some of these players might have, and we'll probably see more of a pack form as we get along here a little bit later on. Yeah, okay, well then let's look at the Constructor Challenge and the standings between the teams. So remember that in this format, drivers not only compete against each other, but also compete as teams for their Constructor Cup trophy. And we have 10 teams, right?
Yep.
20 drivers, 10 teams. That works out. And of course, Oberhausen with Close 24 has quite a lead, him being the best driver as well. But Scantrum in 2nd with 51 points. Your team, Calamity, FGT, with 30 points, tied with my team, 30 points, Cherry Motor Group, so not too bad. And Opava, definitely sitting down there, has a point, but just a single point at the bottom of the table. So
yeah, it's still good to see that at least everyone's picked up points for the teams now. Driver stands will get there eventually. I think most of the people will pick up some points here or there. But yeah, it's surprising. It's actually worked out quite nicely. I think it's a lot closer than I would have thought at the beginning. Especially from like 3rd place down to around 7th, there's only like 11 points difference. So a lot can still change in there.
Yeah, a lot of points up for grabs, and there's I believe there's 10 weeks in the season.
Yes.
So there'll be quite a bit that'll change over the course of things. So don't be counting on Oberhausen to hold that top spot the entire time, or they might. Who knows?
They might well do.
We'll have to see. Well, anyways, let's wrap this up with a quick look at the map for week 2. The feature race will be taking part on France by Mapper. The average score is 2304, quite high for a country map, and I think Calamity might be able to explain why.
Yep, because France has overseas territories, such as Réunion, which means that as long as you're in France, you're not going to get below around like 2,500 to 3,000 points even. On the other hand, if it is in Réunion and you guess France, you can probably kiss your chances of a point goodbye. But France in general is still, it'll depend a lot more on just 1 or 2 points up and down, I think. It can be very hard to get the right general area though, because usually like most of the signs you find don't really give you much information as to where in the country you are. Pinpointing should probably be relatively easy. So I think my guess is gonna be we're gonna see like 4 or 5 people with 25k, And then there'll probably be a couple that drop 1 or 2 points, and then we'll have like don't want to say big drop off, but a couple hundred points between there and the rest, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you can find the area, pinpointing can be quite easy in France, but getting to that area is going to be the challenge, which is going to create that separation from the people who got to the pinpoint stage and those who didn't.
Especially because, as we said before, with Réunion being in there, that also means you can be like 80, 90 meters off and still get full points in France, which is very unusual for a country map.
Yeah, and the map has been played as of a recording 84,224 times. France has quite the Geoguessr fan base. So obviously that's reflected in that number of all those French players playing their home country map by a very popular French map maker. So, yeah. Over 1,000 locations and almost 3,000 likes. Now, the sprint race, Calamity, is going to be taking part on a specially designed map, as they all do, in Monaco, which is like as small as you can get, almost.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. You pretty much, I think it's 14 meters that you've got either way, no matter how small the map is. You don't want to be any further away than that. And just from my experience in the past, like, street view coverage and the way the roads look on the map doesn't match up 100% all the time. So I just hope that we don't get a location like that in the sprint race itself. But Ben also said that the amount of time you get for the sprint race will depend a bit on the map. So I'd be interested in seeing if we only get like 1 minute, for example, as like for the shortest time frame here. Considering like I think we had 2 or 2.5 in Melbourne, something like that. I think it was 2.
Something.
So because like in Monaco, if you get 3 minutes time or even 2 minutes time, you're probably going to find out where you are. It's not that hard. So reducing the time even further might make for some more excitement there.
Okay, well, we'll have to see what the organizers decide to do in Monaco. Again, the sprint race maps are special produced for the race, so there's no stats we can give you on those. We'll just have to see how the competitors do next week in France and Monaco. Well, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. As Calamity mentioned, we did get some video footage from the drivers. So we're trying to think of a very interesting way, almost race-like way to try to display as many of these videos as we can in a video. So look forward to that on the channel in the next couple of days. And we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye.